Good morning. We're talking about the laws of Perm, and we are on Taf Resh Tzadi Daled Beis, which is 694-2. And we're going to be continue talking about laws of giving gifts to the poor on Purim. We mentioned a few days ago that there's a mitzvah to give a gift to two separate poor people on Purim. So now we're going to discuss more of giving gifts to poor people on Purim. Ein mishan and maos Purim litznaka acheres. Money that was set aside to be given to poor people on Purim cannot be redesignated for a different tzedakah. V'dafka hagabayim avla ani yachal azas bo mashirtze, and that only refers to the gabayim, those that are in charge of distributing the money to the poor people. But the poor people can do whatever they want. So, if you give money to poor people on Purim for it to be used for their Purim Suda, so those in charge in the synagogue of distributing the funds, they have to give those funds specifically for that purpose. They can't give it for another charitable purpose. However, once the money is given to the poor people, there's no requirement that they have to spend that money on their Purim meal. They could spend it on whatever they want. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Vav, Ein Mishana Ma'os Purim. Hanu Ma'os Shagava Osama Gabai Lechakam Laniyim Lasudas Purim Ein Yachal L'Shnas. That's what we mentioned. Limer, they can't. Those in charge of distributing the funds can't say, "Daim pachos," let's spend some of the money on the meal for the poor people. V'hamoiser yipo l'kisel shel tzedakah, and the rest will put in the general charity purse for the synagogue. They're not allowed to do that. Rather, they have to spend all the money and buy a lot of food for the poor people on Purim. Now, if they don't eat that food, if it's not used, then you could resell that food, and that money could be put in the general charity purse. Now, another halacha, which is very interesting. Let's finish this line. If you think in your head that I'm going to give this money to the poor people on Purim, you have to do it, and you're not allowed to change your mind after. Meaning there's an actual requirement, even if you just thought in your mind and you concluded, meaning you weren't just like thinking about it, but you actually concluded, I am going to give this money to the poor people on Purim. If you decided that you're going to do that, you're not allowed to change it. You have to fulfill it. You have to fulfill what you thought. You can't change it. And the reason is because giving charity is like hektish. Hektish, back in the days of the temple, you would have an animal, let's say, or something else, an object that you wanted to donate to the temple or bring as a sacrifice. And if you thought that you're going to do it and concluded that you're going to do it, you have to follow through on that mitzvah thought. So the same thing here. If you decided that I'm going to give $100 for the poor people on Purim, you have to follow through and do it. Let's stuck acheres. We mentioned. Okay, fine. So im yesh minhag ba'oso ha'ir. If there's a custom in that city, let's say it's most Purim l'chazan, that they give the Purim money to the cantor of the synagogue, ein iser b'davar. That's not forbidden. Why? Because everyone does what the custom is. The so they have this custom in the city where everybody knows before you give the money that a portion of the Purim money is given to pay the cantor's salary. So that's fine because everybody knows that's what's done with the money beforehand. So that's okay. However, don't think that this fulfills the mitzvah of giving money to the poor on Purim, because this is really just paying the cantor's salary. And even if the cantor himself is poor, this is not considered charity. It's not tzedakah because you're paying his salary. Now, if the whole city gets together after the money was given and they decide that we want to do something else with the money, that's a debate. Look at the Magen Avram. Mashiyertze wrote Salomar af deha govim govamos l'tzarach. So this poor mekomagav. This is what we mentioned before. Yishlani v'shoslots in mishar tzarachav. That once the money is given to the poor person, he's not required to spend the money only on the Purim Suda, or he can use the money for whatever he wants. Okay, so what we learned here was that when people give money to a shul or to a collection for poor people on Purim, that's what the money has to be spent for, and those in charge of the charity can't decide to use it for something else. And we learned that if a person decides in his mind that he's going to give a certain amount of money poor people on Perm, even if he didn't even verbalize what he's about to do, he has to follow through on that inner conviction. Okay, and I'm wishing everyone a beautiful day. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out as always.